Thank you so much for visiting our channel, Story Pals. Please let us know in the commentary what you think of this video. And if you enjoyed watching, please remember to subscribe and share this video now. Let's dive into this inspirational story. Tommy had always been a quiet man, the kind of person who preferred to stay out of the spotlight and let his work speak for itself. A carpenter by trade, he spent most of his days working alone in his small workshop, crafting furniture, or taking on odd jobs around the neighborhood. He had a strong sense of pride in what he did, but he didn't seek attention or recognition. His life was simple, rooted in hard work and helping others whenever he could. He lived in a modest house in a small, close-knit community. His neighbors knew him as the reliable guy who could fix just about anything, from broken doors to creaky floors. Tommy wasn't wealthy, but he got by. His life hadn't been easy. He'd lost his wife, Lisa, to cancer several years ago, leaving him to raise their young daughter, Emma, on his own. Every day was a balance between working hard to provide for her and making sure she never felt the absence of her mother. Emma was the light of Tommy's life. She had inherited her mother's bright blue eyes and her easy smile, and the two of them shared a bond that made all the struggles worth it. Tommy did everything he could to give Emma a good life, even if it meant sacrificing his own desires. He wanted her to grow up with opportunities he didn't have, to dream big and chase those dreams without worrying about the limitations life might throw at her. One chilly morning in early autumn, Tommy was finishing up some work on a neighbor's porch when he noticed something unusual. Mrs. Miller, who lived next door, was struggling to maneuver her wheelchair up the steps of her front porch. Tommy had known Mrs. Miller for years. She was a kind, elderly woman, but, in recent months, she had become more and more frail, her mobility increasingly limited due to her worsening condition. Tommy had always admired her independence, but today, seeing her struggle, something inside him stirred. He put down his tools and walked over to her. "Hey, Mrs. Miller, can I help you with that?" he asked gently. She looked up, her face creasing into a smile. "Oh, Tommy, you're always so kind. But it's just one of those days, I suppose." Tommy could see that she was exhausted, both physically and mentally. She had been in that wheelchair for years, but it wasn't until recently that getting around had become so difficult for her. The stairs to her porch were a constant challenge. Tommy knew he couldn't just stand by and watch her struggle. "You shouldn't have to go through this every day," Tommy said, his voice firm. "I'm going to build you a ramp, free of charge. You shouldn't have to fight with these steps every time you want to go outside." Mrs. Miller's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "Oh, Tommy, that's too much. You don't have to do that." "It's no trouble at all," he said, his voice soft but determined. "You've always been good to me. Let me return the favor." Over the next few days, Tommy worked hard to build the ramp. He used spare wood from his workshop and made sure everything was sturdy and safe. It wasn't a grand gesture, it was just a small ramp, simple and functional, but it was built with care and love. When he finished, he walked over to Mrs. Miller's house to show her the completed work. She was sitting on her front porch, gazing out at the fall leaves. When she turned and saw the ramp, her eyes filled with tears. "Tommy, this is more than I ever expected. You've given me so much more than just a ramp. You've given me back some of my independence." Tommy smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "I'm just glad I could help." Over the next few weeks, Mrs. Miller had no trouble getting in and out of her house. She was able to visit her garden, enjoy the fresh air, and feel a little more like herself again. The ramp, simple as it was, made a world of difference to her. But what Tommy didn't know was that Mrs. Miller had a son, Gregory, who lived in another city. He had been estranged from his mother for many years, but after seeing her struggle with her health, he decided to visit her. When he arrived and saw the ramp, his first words were, "Who built this for you?" "Oh, that would be Tommy," Mrs. Miller replied with a smile. "He's the carpenter next door. He built it for me, free of charge." Gregory was taken aback. "A carpenter, you say?" He was a successful contractor with connections in the building industry. He had a project coming up, a large residential development, that required an experienced carpenter to help with the custom woodwork and details. He had been looking for someone reliable, someone with the right skills and work ethic, but hadn't found the right person. Until now, Gregory thought about the ramp Tommy had built for his mother, and how thoughtful and skilled it was. He saw potential in Tommy, and he knew that if he hired him, Tommy's work could help elevate the project. A few days later, Gregory stopped by Tommy's house to speak with him. He introduced himself and explained the situation. "I've got a big project coming up, and I think you're the perfect person for the job," Gregory said. "It's a huge opportunity, and I'd like to offer you the work." Tommy's eyes widened with surprise. He had always been content with the small jobs he did around the neighborhood. But this was different. It was the chance of a lifetime. It was the kind of job that could change everything for him. That could provide the financial stability he had always wanted for Emma. "Are you sure you want me?" Tommy asked, his voice humble. "I'm just a small-town carpenter," Gregory smiled. "I've seen your work. You're exactly what I'm looking for." The project turned out to be a huge success. Tommy worked hard, putting in long hours and dedicating himself to making sure everything was perfect. And the more he worked, the more he realized that this opportunity wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to himself that he was capable of so much more than he had ever imagined. It was about showing Emma that hard work, kindness, and doing the right thing, like helping Mrs. Miller, could lead to incredible rewards. Months later, when the project was complete, Gregory offered Tommy a permanent position on his team, one with a substantial salary and benefits. Tommy's life had changed in ways he never thought possible, all because of a small act of kindness. A ramp built for a neighbor in need. As he stood in his workshop, looking at the framed photos of Emma on the wall, he couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. It wasn't just the big project or the money that had made this moment so special. It was the reminder that sometimes, doing something small for someone else can lead to opportunities bigger than you could ever imagine. And for Tommy, that was the most rewarding lesson of all.